welcome everybody. Welcome to Advancing Our Church, a podcast about Catholic stewardship, leadership, and advancement. I'm Jim Friend, and I'm so grateful you decided to join us for this episode. We have a great conversation planned for you today with Deacon Ed Shoener. But before we get started, if you like our content, I hope you're going to stick around and subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you download your favorite podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn. And for more information about our show, or to contact me, or for a complete listing and description of all of our episodes, you can find us at advancingourchurch.com. Well, Deacon Ed, welcome back to the show. How are you today?
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me back again, Jim. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a couple years since we had you back on episode 110. And so if folks aren't familiar, I thought I would just provide a little introduction to Deacon Ed. He's the president of the Association of Catholic Mental Health Ministers. He was ordained a permanent deacon in the Diocese of Scranton back in 2004, and he currently serves at St. Peter's Cathedral in Scranton. Deacon Ed is a founding member of the Association of Catholic Mental Health Ministers and the Catholic Institute of Mental Health Ministry at the University of San Diego. He serves on the Council on Mental Illness, on the National Catholic Partnership on Disability, and on the board of Pathways to Promise, an interfaith cooperative that facilitates the faith community's work in reaching out to those with mental illness and their families. Deacon Shoener, along with Bishop John Dolan, is co-author of the books Responding to Suicide, a Pastoral Handbook for Catholic Leaders, and When a Loved One Dies by Suicide by Ave Maria Press in Notre Dame. He, along with his family and friends, founded the Katie Foundation after his daughter Kathleen died by suicide in 2016. Deacon Ed and I first met back in December 2022 when I had him on the podcast back on episode 110. And I'm so pleased to have you back here today, Deacon Ed. I know a lot has happened with you. Your ministry has continued to grow over the last couple of years. You and I have stayed in contact, but maybe you could update our listeners a little bit on what has been kind of the focus for the ministry and how has it grown a little bit over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it certainly has grown in the last couple of years. It's still very much a new seed trying to be planted in the life of the church. So we started the association in 2018, 2019, in that time period. As you said, with Bishop Dolan and a few other good folks from around the country, around the U.S., because we saw this need for a ministry that focuses specifically on mental health related issues and mental illness, suicide, and these unique issues that maybe for far too long, not just the church, but society in general has been reluctant to address directly and to talk about. And the goal of the association is, we're not psychiatrists or psychologists or anything like that. Our goal is not to cure anything. That's what medical doctors do. Our goal is to accompany people who live with these mental health challenges and illnesses and other situations, and their caregivers, to offer the comfort of the church and the accompaniment of the church in these struggles. Because, in the secular society, do a pretty good job dealing with the mind and the body. But our spiritual life, we're mind, body, and spirit. And there's a need for the Catholic Church to provide to accompany people so that they can know that God has not forgotten them, God's with them, and His church is with them. Because, all too often with these illnesses, you can start to question yourself. You can start to question what your relationship is with God. So this ministry tries to help people, reassure people that they are loved by God and that His church is with them in the midst of all of this. And that's what we do with the association.
That's excellent. And I would imagine, and as you know, and our listeners know, I'm now at St. John Vianney Center. And so mental health has become much more part of my daily life. And I'm so excited and happy to be part of this ministry with you in many ways. I'm finding that the stigma of mental health is lessening, especially over the last 5 years since COVID, and so many people had challenges and traumas during that time period. Are you finding that this resonates more at the parish level, at the diocesan level, over the last couple of years as you've kind of grown this ministry?
Yes, it certainly has. I don't think this ministry would have been possible 10 or 20 years ago. I think the stigma just would have been overwhelming to the point where people would not have been comfortable offering this kind of ministry. And that's borne out by the facts. I mean, this kind of ministry was not available 10 or 20 years ago. So yeah, so we're willing to at least talk about mental health and mental illness at this point. And I would say in the church, this ministry is similar to like a grief support ministry in many ways. In fact, those of us that are drawn this ministry also do grief support. I'm one of those people that offer both mental health ministry and grief support. It's a ministry of accompaniment, and it's a ministry that doesn't try to fix anything, but it tries to reassure people that God's with them. So a lot of what we do now is provide some basic information on how to offer a ministry like this. We have a online learning center where you can get more information on how to start a mental health ministry, take some basic training courses to build up your confidence, because that's really all you need. You don't need expertise. You need confidence to offer this ministry. And I always say that the two things that you need to offer this ministry is one, a love of Jesus Christ, and two, a passion to assist those that are facing mental health challenges. If you got those two things, you got the basic fundamentals of what you need to offer this ministry. Because as good Catholics, we know that psychology and psychiatry and medicine, psychotropic medicines, all of that's a gift from God, just like physical medicine is. So we encourage people to go and get professional care, but that's not what we do in this ministry. Just as when we're accompanying people with cancer, we're not oncologists treating the cancer. We're accompanying them as they deal with these illnesses. So that's what we do in this ministry. And our association, like I said, provides training resources. We have lots of prayer resources and other information on how to do this ministry. And I'm thrilled to say that the ministry now, Jim, since we last spoke, we're in about 40 countries now. We have members in about 40 countries around the world. Over 2,000 subscribers and members to the association. I've been to Africa. I was never to Africa. This ministry is really taking off in Africa. I'll be going to India next month for a couple of weeks. The bishops and the episcopacy there in India is really embracing this ministry. We're in Moldova, of all places, next to Ukraine. I know many people might not know where Moldova is. It's between Romania and Ukraine, and they're kind of caught right in the middle of the refugee crisis from the war, and many other places around the world. So yeah, the Holy Spirit's moving in this. So Lord knows I come from a business background, but wasn't any sort of great strategic business planning on my part. It's more that you can see the Holy Spirit just moving with this ministry. And as you said, I think the stigma's decreased enough to the point where people are willing to consider and see the value and the importance of a ministry like this.
I'll bet. I'm just curious, what is when you talk about the ministry of accompaniment, what does it look like at the parish level? You have I assume you have like a coordinator for the ministry. Is there like a support group? Is there are they the resource person for the parish? How does that look?
Yeah, it's a simple ministry. It's not like it requires 40 hours a week of effort or anything. It's a simple ministry. So yeah, a couple of things. One would be spiritual support groups for people that live with mental illnesses and mental health challenges, as well as a separate support group for their caregivers, usually the parents. So the support group for the people that live with these illnesses is a simple group where people can come together and talk about their faith and their mental health challenges and how the two go together and how one can support the other. So we, for example, here in Scranton meet on Saturday mornings, every other Saturday. And it's a wonderful group. It lasts about an hour and a half. We open with a prayer. Then we go around the room and, 1 to 5, 1 being pretty good, 5 being had a rough week or two. And we let the people that are 5s go first, and because they usually want to talk a bit more. And we encourage them to talk about how their faith is supporting them in their struggles or not. We encourage them to pray, and that if they are struggling with that sort of thing. And then we also have time to socialize, because so often with these mental health challenges, we can tend to isolate ourselves. And then we always close with a more extended prayer exercise, maybe a rosary, or we'll do a Stations of the Cross or midday prayer. But we always focus it on prayer and our relationship with Christ. And that support group has been, many of the people have been coming for years, and they're a little bit older. They realize they need the support and that it's important to their living in recovery and living good lives with these mental health challenges. The other group is for caregivers and parents, and the nature of that group's a little different. That's tends to be people that are in crisis, like their child or their spouse just attempted suicide or has just been admitted to a psychiatric hospital, and they don't know where to turn, who to talk to. They're in shock and they're in grief, many instances, because their life has been turned upside down from what they expected.
Yeah.
So that can be a lot more tears, a lot more emotion. Usually they'll come for a few months until the crisis subsides. But yeah, I would say the heart of this group are these support groups. The other thing we do is we do a lot of work with educating the community, the parish community, about mental health and mental illness to try to normalize it. So, for example, we work in intercessory prayers during the masses. I and other people will preach on it occasionally, or work the topic into homilies to sort of normalize the conversation. We don't have to make it just a special mental health mass. I mean, we just work references to mental health and mental illness into the normal everyday homily, so to speak. So we do that. We have special liturgies. We have here in this diocese of Scranton and a couple other dioceses around the country. Now we do a mass in September, which is Suicide Remembrance Month. So we do a mass for suicide and remembrance and healing. Sometimes we do a mass. Many places do a mass in May, which is Mental Health Month, and also the feast day for Saint Dymphna, who's the patron for people with mental illness. So we do a mass around that theme. Christmas time, I live with depression and many other people with mental health challenges. We love the fact that Jesus was born and Jesus came into the world to save us. But maybe we're not really so thrilled with all the secular hoopla with Christmas and the forced happiness. So we have a blue Christmas service. And it's quite often it's ecumenical because a lot of other denominations have this blue Christmas on the longest night of the year on December 21st. So, like I said, we work into the liturgy. We work to educate the parish community, and we work to provide direct support to people that are living with mental health challenges. That's basically the sum total of what this ministry involves.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's so interesting. The blue Christmas. That's such a cool concept. I love that. Yeah.
I know a lot of other denominations have been doing it for a while. We started to encourage it within Catholic parishes, and it doesn't have to be a mass. In a lot of ways, it's better if it's a service, a prayer service. So it can be ecumenical, maybe with some Taizé prayer and certainly traditional Catholic prayers. But have it as a prayer service. So we can invite the other denomination and even other faiths, other than non-Christian faiths are welcome to come too.
That's cool. Wow. I was also thinking as you're talking about homily, speaking points, I would imagine, I don't know if you provide those, but as somebody who will one day be doing homilies in the not too distant future.
Well, that's right. You're a deacon. You're learning to be a deacon. We do have homily helpers. We have some homilies that we've written. Yeah, I mean, like every time there's a reference to a leper, to leprosy, I think that's a wonderful connection to mental illness in the sense that back 2,000 years ago when Christ was physically walking on the earth, lepers were ostracized. The illness of leprosy was not understood. They thought it was poor parenting or sins of the fathers or maybe something the person with the leprosy themselves did. And they were defined by their illness. They were called lepers. So what does that sound like? I mean, that sounds in a large part how people, particularly with serious mental illnesses, are treated.
Yes.
They're just labeled as their illness. He's a schizophrenic. Well, no, he's a person with schizophrenia. He's not a schizophrenic. That sort of thing. And Christ saw past all of that, saw that they were a beautiful person who was created in the image and likeness of God and loved them and took care of them, embraced them. And so that's just one example of how you can work it into a homily. There's many other examples. I'm to the point now with my preaching, I think almost every mass, daily readings, if you can't find a mental illness angle, you're probably not thinking hard enough about it. Because Christ certainly understood our mental health issues and understood mental illness, and there's plenty of references to it throughout the Old Testament. Because many of the folks in the Old Testament dealt with these challenges. I mean, there's nothing, like Ecclesiastes starts, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, we've always had these challenges. We're human beings. And it's good now that we're able to bring them out in the open a little bit more and start to address them more directly.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's one very good points. So I know a couple years ago when we first spoke, the Pope, you had just gotten involved with the Vatican in in one way where the Pope had recognized the mental health, I believe, as one of his intentions for the month for the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network. And now 2 years later, I see that you gathered with some other folks in this ministry down at the Vatican. Tell us, and it was around a mental health conference at the Vatican.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Well, as a just a simple deacon from Scranton, all of this talking about the Vatican and all of this I have a hard time wrapping my head around it, so to speak. But yeah, when I first got contacted by the Vatican, the Pope's prayer intentions for November of 2021 was for people that live with depression. And as far as any of us know, that was the first time the Pope has explicitly prayed for a mental health condition. So so I often tell this story now when I'm out speaking. I'm sitting around my kitchen table here in Scranton with my wife one morning, and I get this email that says it's from Andrea at the Holy See at the Vatican. He would like to talk to me about the Pope's prayer, and would I please contact him? So I'm sure many people and clergy get these sort of spam emails all the time. Please contact me. That's usually the
right. Yes, I've gotten those myself.
Spam. We all get this sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
originally I was going to ignore it and think of it as just one more piece of spam. But my wife said, right back to this guy. So I wrote back and I said, okay, Andrea, with quote marks, Andrea, what is it you would like? And it turned out it really was Andrea Cerubi from the Vatican, from the Pope's Prayer Network, who somehow had Googled around the internet and landed upon me. What they were looking for specifically was not mental health professionals. Obviously, the Vatican would have no trouble finding a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They were looking for someone that was interested in the pastoral side of this, the pastoral care issues, ministry issues. And, for better or for worse, I was kind of the only one out there at the time that was really active in this sort of ministry of a mental health ministry. So I got involved with the Pope's Prayer Network, helping with that prayer intention for that month. And the Pope does every month now records a nice, crisp, little, beautiful video, about two minutes long or so, on his prayer intention, and then has some other print material on their webpage. They also have an app called Click to Pray, which is like the daily office light. There's a short morning, afternoon, and evening prayer. It's a beautiful thing. It gets millions of views. It's translated into 7 languages. It's seen all over the world. So it's a nice way to use the internet to proclaim the word of Christ. And so it's a beautiful thing to be involved with. They did a wonderful job in that November 21 prayer intention. And since then, we've continued to work with the Pope's Prayer Network, where we do a monthly day revolving around mental health, a monthly day for mental health. So when the Pope's prayer, whatever the Pope's prayer intention is, each month they change, we will, on that second Monday of the month, it'll be Mental Health Day, and we'll take a mental health view of the prayer intention. So, for example, when the Pope was praying for teachers, we prayed for the mental health of teachers and their students. And we do like that every month. So this current month, February, just a day or two ago, February was for people with terminal illnesses. Mm-hmm. So we talked about the mental health challenges of living with a terminal diagnosis and the depression and anxiety that goes along with that, and how Christ accompanies you in the midst of that. And in March, it'll be for martyrs, and our prayer and reflections around how the fact that many saints and many martyrs of the church live with mental illness. So mental illness and mental health challenges is not an impediment to holiness, even courageous holiness of martyrdom. St. Oscar Romero, who was a modern saint, was diagnosed, had an actual modern diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder. His friend, the Blessed Grande, has schizophrenia, was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So I think it's important to reflect on that God overcomes everything. Even mental illness is not an impediment to God, and certainly not an impediment to living great holy lives. So it's wonderful to have that partner with the Pope's Prayer Network, where we can reflect on that every month.
That's beautiful. And what were some of the other ministries there that were represented, the folks that you met? You probably met a pretty interesting group of folks.
Yeah, well, I met the founders of Hallow. Some people might know the Hallow app.
Sure. You see that all the time. Yeah.
App that's out there now. Some other people from the Vatican, from the But it was the meeting was the audience for the Pope was for the Pope's Prayer Network. So it was
Yeah.
mainly for people that are involved with the Prayer Network from all over the world. They
Hmm.
did the Pope's Prayer Network. So I met some wonderful people from the Philippines and from Africa and South America. There were about 15 or 20 of us at this private audience with
Hmm.
Pope Francis. And we were laughing. You go up to the room, you go through the Apostolic Palace, and you go
Hmm.
up, which is this big, grand, ancient building with big, wide stairways, and you're led up by a member of the Swiss Guard, and and we're, I'm laughing. Again, I keep joking. I'm a guy from Scranton, so I'm telling the people, don't touch anything on the walls because it's all this great artwork, and it's like, don't touch anything. You don't want to, you don't want to break anything in this beautiful building.
Must have been
And
the guy from Scranton if it happens, right? He did
yeah,
it.
that's right. They blamed the guy from Scranton if it
Guy-
happened. So we didn't break anything. So we went up to the room, and like I said, there's about 15 or 20 of us or so. And believe it or not, the Pope kept us waiting for a couple minutes. He is a busy guy, so we got there and had to wait a couple minutes for him. But it's interesting. Pope Francis is, I guess, how you would think he would be. It's not like he came into the room and the Swiss Guard marched up to the front and said, "All stand for the Pope" or anything like that. He just sort of quietly, we didn't even see him coming. He just sort of quietly came into the back of the room from another door and just walked in and goes, "Buongiorno, buongiorno," good day, good morning. And come up and said a couple words about the importance of the Prayer Network. And then we all greeted him. And I came up and I gave him a copy of our book on how to start a mental health ministry, and thanked him for supporting mental health issues. And so it was very brief. He said thank you and smiled, and it was very brief. But it was quite an experience to be there and be in the presence of the Holy Father, as it was for, I'm sure, everybody in the room. There was one woman there with a 6-month-old baby, so he of course loved that. He seems to love being able to touch a baby on the head. So
Sure.
it was all around nice experience. It was very good thing to do, and I'm certainly thrilled that I was able to be that close to the Pope and speak to him for a couple minutes. It was very nice.
Yeah. Beautiful. What a beautiful experience. I'm sure one that you'll remember for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. They of course have a picture of me handing him the book, so we use that on our webpage and show people that even the Pope's on board with mental health ministry. He kind of understands the importance of it. So
yeah.
And then after that, we had meetings. By coincidence, the other thing I laughed about, getting a phone call, and then in November of 21, kind of out of the blue, and we were already planning to have a meeting there in Rome with some of the dicasteries about discussing mental health ministry and the officials at the Vatican. So I was already planning on being in Rome, and I did get a call from Father Frederick Fornos, who runs the Pope Prayer Network, a couple weeks prior to that, in early January, where he asked me, he goes, "Well, would you like to meet the Pope?" I said, well, sure, I'd like to meet, that'd be okay. Yeah, that'd be great to meet the Pope. And it just is a happy coincidence that it was also, the Pope audience was also at the time we were planning this meeting. So they kind of they lined up I think I met the Pope on a Friday and our conference was on Monday. So that worked out well. And we had a conference then, an afternoon with various people from different dicasteries and different dicasteries, like a department at the Vatican, and different other organizations about mental health ministry. And people made various statements about the importance of it, and we just started a conversation on how we coordinate with each other to bring this ministry into the church. So that's what we did. And then I had some other subsequent follow-up meetings. I won't bore you with all these meetings, but so a large part of building anything is getting to know people and getting to know what they do, and for them to understand what we're doing, because this ministry is brand new in the life of the church. I mean, so explaining what it is, how it differs from mental health treatment, that it is a ministry, not mental health care per se. And so it takes time for people to understand what we're doing. So it was a good week. It's a good week. It's always good to go to Rome. Going to Rome is never bad.
Of course.
But it was a good week, Yeah, lots of gelato. They have some good wine over there in Italy. I don't know if you know.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very nice trip.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So since we last spoke, as I mentioned, I'm over here at St. John Vianney Center, and And I understand that Bishop Dolan has decided to join our board. So we're very excited to have him on board here at St. John Vianney Center. What has it been like? I know that Bishop Dolan has been kind of your partner in crime a little bit, if you will, in this whole effort from the beginning. What has been like partnering with the bishop? I know he has some family history with mental health, and that this ministry has been very important to him. What has it been like working with the bishop?
Well, Bishop John Dolan is a wonderful man. He's been very supportive. We've grown to be friends, and he's a good man. He's a good man. The people of Phoenix are lucky to have him as their bishop. And he certainly understands this issue of mental health and mental illness. As you mentioned, it was in his family, and he's lost 3 siblings to suicide, plus a brother-in-law. And, so that goes to show you it runs at every family, bishop, deacon, priests. But Bishop Dolan, he was installed as the Bishop of Phoenix in August of 22. And his sister Mary died by suicide 3 or 4 months after that, in October of 22. Wow. And she left him a little note to the effect, continue with this important ministry. So that certainly continues to inspire him, although obviously he didn't want or need that inspiration. He was totally committed to this ministry regardless. But he continues to be involved, continues to be our chaplain. We'll be having a conference on mental health ministry at Mundelein University outside of Chicago, which any of your listeners are welcome to come to. There's still some, you can still register for that. It's at the end of April at the St. Mary's Seminary. He'll be speaking at it, as will Bishop Gudziak from the Ukrainian Church. Bishop Gudziak is leading an effort on the part of the U.S. Conference of Bishops to reflect on mental health and mental health ministry. So those 2 gentlemen, those 2 bishops will attending the conference, along with a lot of other good people who are involved in mental health ministry. So if any of your listeners are interested in starting a mental health ministry, this is a conference they might want to think about coming to.
Absolutely. And we'll leave a link in the show notes of this episode to find the conference and to find your website and to get more information about the organization. Any closing thoughts, Deacon Ed? This has been great just to catch up with you and find out what's been going on.
Yeah, I would just encourage people to think about starting a mental health ministry in their parish. I mean, the ministry's grown to the point where we have the tools and the resources for you to do that. And like I said, if you love Jesus Christ, and if you love and have a passion to help people with a mental illness, you can do it. And we can help you do it. So our hope is one day this ministry is as common in every parish as, youth ministry or grief support ministry, just a common everyday ministry where we take care of each other as we struggle with these mental health challenges.
Very well said. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode. And again, we'll leave links to Deacon Ed and to this mental health ministry in the show notes of this episode. Until next time, thanks so much and God bless. Thanks again, Ed.
Thanks.
Well, that's our show this week. I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining me on today's show. I hope you found this conversation valuable and that it has in some way inspired you to take action to advance the mission of our church. And if this is your first time listening to Advancing Our Church, I hope you're going to stick around and subscribe. You can find us on all places where you download your favorite podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And for more information about our show, please visit us at advancingourchurch.com. Well, that's it for me, everybody. I hope you're having a terrific week. We'll see you next time. Take care, and God bless.